Joining us now, a member of the House Oversight Committee, Virginia Democrat Suhas Subramanian. Congressman, it's good to have you here, and I know it's behind closed doors for a reason. But tell us what you can about this roundtable and what you're hoping to get out of it.
I think in the end, the victims deserve a voice in this process. I mean, they were suffered horrific consequences of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes. And they deserve to let us know how they feel about this whole process. I know what they've said so far is that they want the files released as well. They want us to continue to hold the president accountable. And, you know, this whole process, it's been oversight Democrats who have actually been pushing these investigations. We're the ones that forced a vote. We're the ones that actually wanted real accountability from the president. And so that's why we wanted to meet with the victims, because in the end, this was about what they suffered and how the president is not releasing the files related to this as he promised the American people.
Congressman, can you tell us how many victims you'll be meeting with today? And do you have an expectation that you might learn some things that haven't been out there so far?
Well, at least a few victims will be there along with their families. I'll say this, that, we're going to ask them questions not only about, how they suffered and what they want to share with us and what they want us to be doing throughout this process. But we also want to know, whether they knew about the president's involvement with Maxwell and Epstein as well. And, what they think we should expect if we are to question someone like Maxwell, since they were victims of Maxwell's. And so I think this will be a very informative discussion, I think. And, throughout this whole process, we've been talking about the victims, but I know I wanted to meet with the victims personally to hear what they have to say, because in the end, they're the ones that suffered the most throughout this whole process.
My understanding is that tomorrow, Congressman Khanna and Massey are expected to hold a press conference with 10 of Epstein's victims, and Congressman Khanna has said it will be explosive. Do you and your colleagues already know more than has been publicly released?
What we have is we're in the dark just as much as the American people. I'd like to get more information. I'd like to do more fact-finding. The reality is the president promised to release lists and the files, and what he released over recess, 97% of it was already public. And so oversight Democrats are asking for real files. We're asking for real truth, real accountability of this president and this administration, because they're simply skirting their responsibility and their promises to the American people right now. And so we deserve better, and the victims certainly deserve better as well.
Well, Congressman Massey says today at 2:15, an hour and 15 minutes from now, he's going to start the process to attempt to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. Do you think you'll get a vote? Can it get 218 signatures?
I'm optimistic. I mean, certainly if every single member of Congress who said they cared about releasing the files voted to discharge and make that vote, we would have the votes. But this is a good test of whether Republicans actually care about the Epstein files, or whether they're just talking, or whether they're just supporting the president no matter what. But certainly I'd like to see a vote, and I'm optimistic that there will be a vote.
It's been a month since Congress adjourned, and that did little to calm the attention surrounding the Epstein case. But do you have any concern, Congressman, with all the other stuff that's going on, including trying to get a budget together, make sure the government doesn't shut down, that Epstein is not where your constituents want your focus to be?
I think my constituents want to hold the president accountable.
Members of Congress are back from summer break today, and they're picking up pretty much where they left off with the Jeffrey Epstein saga. House Speaker Mike Johnson and members of a key committee will meet with some of Epstein's victims ahead of a public news conference that's scheduled for tomorrow. They are in town in D.C. as part of a bipartisan pressure campaign led by Democrat Ro Khanna and Republican Thomas Massey to force a vote demanding the public release of all the Epstein files. So far, Speaker Johnson has stood in the way of that. Now, moments ago, he did schedule a competing symbolic resolution to affirm the Oversight Committee's work, a move Massey called meaningless. My panel is back. What are you hearing from your sources? Is this discharge petition going to pass?
Well, it's expected for all House Democrats to sign on, so that's 212. have to get to 218. And there are Republicans who have said time and time again that they are for releasing the Epstein files. A number of members of the House Freedom Caucus saying they're likely to join onto this discharge petition. But this competing resolution, which again just affirms, hey, we're investigating, we're doing the work. Right. Leadership is hoping that compels some of these Republicans who want to vote to say that they support release of the Epstein files, but not join on to that bipartisan petition. But it's going to go on all week. I mean, this is going to dominate the conversations that are happening on the Hill. I'm sure reporters are getting ready to stake out the meetings happening today and obviously the press conferences tomorrow. But even if that discharge petition were to pass, get enough votes, force a vote on the House floor, then it has to go to the Senate. And we haven't really seen Senate Republicans engage in the same way on Epstein. And obviously, if they were to pass it in the Senate, Trump would have to sign it into law. And we have very much seen how Trump wants this issue to go away. I don't think it's going to reach his desk.
And yet, this is the first issue in this term, in this Trump term, that we have seen where there is genuine grassroots pressure that is against the Trump grain, that is from many in the MAGA base who want these released. And clearly what Ro Khanna and the Democrats are doing is trying to make Republicans take an uncomfortable vote so that if they vote against it, every single campaign against every Republican who's in even a moderately tough race, the Democrats are going to say, they claim that they wanted the Epstein files to be released, but look, here's a no vote. They really don't. Can you really trust them or whatever it is? I mean, the ads kind of write themselves. Real quick, before you jump in, you mentioned that there's going to be a list of things that are happening on this front. On the 8th, the goal for the Epstein estate to hand over materials to the Oversight Committee. On the 17th, FBI Director Kash Patel is going to testify in the House. And on the 19th, the former Labor Secretary, Alex Acosta, is going to testify in the House. Why? Because he was the prosecutor in charge of the deal that was struck back during Trump won with Jeffrey Epstein.
Before Trump won, when he was back in the U.S. Attorney's Office down in Florida. And it's been kind of one of the key voices that I think a lot of people have been wanting to hear from here in terms of what the deferred prosecution agreement that was actually set up, how it came to be, what the genesis of that was, which I think underscores the point that, to Mariana's point, like, they're back, and it's the first thing they're doing. Part of the reason House Republicans went home for recess a couple days early is because they're like, look, everybody just needs to cool off, and then maybe after August, district work period, by the way, Dana, not recess, district work period, people will have let this go. And I think you make a great point. The durability of this issue, which, like all issues on Capitol Hill, it's driven by the people that are calling your office. Members respond to that. They respond to what they're hearing when they're back home in the district, which they have been for the last several weeks. It's like nothing I've ever seen before, given how desperately the White House has tried to put this to bed every which way but Sunday, including the release of the transcript with the Deputy Attorney General just a couple of weeks ago. And it's still here, and it's going to be here for weeks to come.
Let's listen to what Ro Khanna is saying about his push with Tom Massie, one of the most liberal, one of the most conservative members of Congress, together to get this vote on the floor.
Leadership in White House is not just talking to them, they're trying to intimidate them. There are 12 Republicans. I admire their independence, and I'm quite confident that we are going to get the vast majority of them to sign, and maybe some others. This is about making sure rich and powerful men don't have a separate system of justice in this country.
No.
Clients list, and then that birthday book, which has drawn just a ton of attention because of the direct connection to Donald Trump, allegedly. They're obviously were known to have this close social relationship, but the actual birthday well wish is the one that has been some controversy that the president has denied writing.
Right. So, Catherine, this birthday book, we've talked about it before. It's something that's not going away. How significant could it be, especially given President Trump's denials about including anything in it? If it turns out there's something there, then what?
It's significant because we will know the people who were in Epstein's social world. That does not mean they were criminals. But if you're signing his book, wishing him a happy birthday, you're people who know him well enough that he would have you sign this book for him and wish him a happy birthday.
I'm wondering, too, when we were just hearing from Ryan Nobles about the meetings with the abuse survivors, potentially some survivors coming forward who haven't come forward before. If they give new information, could that launch a new direction and perhaps reopen an investigation? in terms of like the DOJ's stance?
Well, Epstein is dead, so that part of it is gone. But what it might do is chill any talk about pardoning or commuting the sentence of Ms. Maxwell, because it's enough that we have her trial and those witnesses who testified publicly in court. Now we have other people who, when they were minors, which means they can't consent, were victimized by Ms. Maxwell and Mr. Epstein.
But what if they point fingers at other people?
Yes. Well, then you would hope that the U.S. attorney, whatever district that these acts happened against them, would start questioning them seriously, and particularly if they're naming names that the DOJ and the Southern District and the Florida U.S. attorney were not aware of before.
Ryan, House lawmakers are also seeking documents from the Treasury Department related to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, right? What's that all about?
Well, the Treasury Department could have records. There's supposed to be these anytime a bank transfers more than $10,000, there's supposed to be these records. So it might help to sort of paint this financial picture of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing and where some of his money was going, what sort of interactions he got that way. But I think especially from the documents from his estate could be potentially more illuminating. But the Treasury Department ones might be of interest as well.
Catherine, your thoughts about what they're calling suspicious activity reports that they're trying to get from the Treasury Department?
Well, all banks, all financial institutions are required to file suspicious activity reports. In law enforcement, we call them SARs. Whenever a customer or an account looks suspicious, is engaging in some financial crime, money laundering, they are required to file that with the Department of Justice. We've seen these transactions. In our opinion, it's money laundering. In our opinion, it's some financial fraud, some elder fraud. So if those were filed by whatever banks or financial institutions he kept his money, they would give a wealth of information about what was going on financially with him and Miss Maxwell.
As I said, the fact that this story hasn't withered is very bad news for Trump, because stories usually, in the Trump era especially, because he's always doing something awful, right? So it's like he does something bad, we cover it in shock and horror, and then he does something worse often the next week, and so the coverage shifts to that, and we sort of forget what he did. And often a Trump story will like never survive a weekend. He'll do something stupid on a Thursday, and by Monday we're on to something else. Right? With this, though, this didn't just last a weekend. This Epstein stuff survived the summer break. Often stories wither and fade away over the summer Congress break. Congress goes away for the better part of 2-3 months. It's a little different each time. They come back after Labor Day, and that's when people start paying attention again. But usually there's like a whole new suite of things that they talk about. New policies, new debates, in election years, that's when the election coverage really ramps up for midterms and presidential, like all of that, right? And yet, what are we still talking about? Congress, in an increasingly bipartisan way, is still focused on bringing light and justice to what Trump's buddy Jeff did all those years ago, and how there's no way it was just him and Ghislaine Maxwell, and that Donald is implicated in the files. Now, we don't know exactly how, but that's why they're hiding it. And the fact that Congress is still making moves against him in this regard, that's bad news.